South Carolina could become the next state to redraw its congressional map. Republican Governor Henry McMaster is expected to announce a special session to address redistricting just days after several Republican state senators crossed party lines to reject a redistricting plan that would have likely cost longtime Democrat Jim Clyburn his congressional seat. Governor McMaster's decision is a reversal from his insistence earlier this month that he would not hold a special session to redraw South Carolina's map. Meanwhile, here in Washington, House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries held a caucus-wide briefing today to discuss Democrats' efforts to combat redistricting efforts triggered by the Supreme Court's decision that struck down part of the Voting Rights Act. Democrats warning that as many as a third of the Congressional Black Caucus could be wiped out by GOP redistricting. NBC News senior national political reporter Sahil Kapur joins me now from the Capitol. Sahil, thanks so much for being here. So what have you learned about the Democrats' strategy to try to counteract Republicans' potential redistricting gains?
Well, Kristen, the strategic options that Democrats have to directly counteract what Republicans are doing are very limited for several reasons, partly because of this late stage in the calendar. Many primaries have already taken place. In other cases, early voting is just about happening and ballots are already getting out there. And secondly, because a number of Democrats in blue states essentially slap handcuffs on themselves in terms of what they could do in terms of partisan redistricting that red states don't have. States like Texas and Florida did not have any such restrictions. And those self-imposed restraints are now coming back to bite Democrats now that they want to escalate this war on redistricting. Then there is the fact that ahead of the 2026 elections, the centerpiece of the Democratic strategy is simply to use this anger to win big and to gain enough seats in the House to, regardless of the Republican gains that they're going to make to redistricting, win enough seats to get to 218 at minimum. Take a listen to what Hakeem Jeffries said about what they can do after that, looking to 2028.
Over the next year or so, what you're going to see in state after state are Democrats making clear that we are not going to unilaterally disarm. And as a result of that, in places like New York, New Jersey, Oregon, as well as Washington, in Colorado, and of course in Illinois and Maryland, we're going to take the steps necessary to ensure that in advance of the 2028 election, we have a decisive and overwhelming response.
So that's 2 years from now where they see the opportunities. Kristen, the one state that Democrats are watching again between now and the 2026 midterms is Maryland. There's one seat there held by the Republican Andy Harris that Democrats suddenly feel a little bit more optimistic that they can work on. Their main legislator in the Maryland State House who's been standing in the way of that, in the wake of what Republicans have been doing. A number of Democrats here are keeping an eye on that.
Well, it's just fascinating to hear from Leader Jeffries on all of this. Big picture, Sahil, before the Supreme Court ruling, as you well know, you and I have been covering this, you've been covering every twist and turn. Democrats were feeling quite emboldened and confident that they had a good chance of taking back the House. What is the sense now? Do Democrats think they still have a path?
Oh, they still have a path, and Democrats are so optimistic that they can win back control of the House of Representatives overall. What they know is that they've lost the redistricting battle. It looked like it was going to be a wash between the two parties as recently as 2 weeks ago. Then Virginia happened. They lost the gerrymander they did there up to 4 seats. Then the Supreme Court ruling on the Voting Rights Act came down, essentially nuking Section 2 that has led to these red states moving. So look, what we're looking at is a mid to high single-digit gain on net by Republicans just on redistricting, but there are 18 Republican-held seats, according to the Cook Political Report, that in the toss-up map that Democrats can realistically win if they have a good year, Kristen.
All right, Sahil Kapur, thank you so much, as always, for your reporting from Capitol Hill. Really appreciate it.
We thank you for watching, and remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or watch live on our YouTube channel.